It's a football Friday. Happy to have you in, Deuce. How you doing today?
Love the football Friday, and a special shout out to our boy Diff, who is just tearing up the Yanadasas at the mid-am today.
Golf Channel may have to change their plans for the weekend.
If he's out this afternoon or tomorrow morning, it could be a show for the people.
If we can only get the chef on his bag, then we could really have reality TV.
I'd pay pay-per-view to watch them prowl the streets of Utica tonight.
We've only had limited Tour Championship action so far, but just give me your initial thoughts before we get into football.
Yeah, it's tough to watch, 30 guys on TV sometimes, just because there's a lag in the coverage, but guys are playing well. So far, it looks like the ball strikers are really rising to the top. Two sort of surprises, though. Ricky Fowler and Hideki Matsuyama really struggling, so something to keep an eye on for the President's Cup coming up.
Has your opinion of who's going to compete when it comes to Sunday changed at all based on what you've seen?
There's a couple different guys on the board, Webb Simpson, Kyle Stanley, that are surprises, but no, there's some guys lurking, just two or three back. I think you'll see a lot of fluctuation in the next 2 days.
Well, if the past few weekends of NFL are any indication of what we're going to get, the Tour Championship may be on the main TV.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see, one of those head-to-head matchups on Sunday afternoon. It seems like we've gotten that 3 or 4 out of the last 5 weeks, so that should be fun.
Before we get into the college slate, just a quick question for you on the NFL, where I've seen the ratings have dipped to a 20-year low. What are your thoughts on why the ratings have slipped? Is it because of the sloppy play, the supposed cord cutting of cable subscribers, or I don't want to get too much into it, is it because of the activists and protests?
We could probably have an hour-long conversation about this, and everything you just said probably is a small piece of the pie. If we're cutting this up, I don't think there's one dominant piece of the pie. I've talked about this with a couple of my friends down here who have young kids, and they're at that age starting sports, and one of them is a offensive coordinator for one of the best high school programs in our state, and he is kind of pushing his kid away from playing football. I think that has something to do with it. Just the aspect of all these new studies about CTE. I think just the game itself is losing a little bit of popularity to some of the other sports. And then, like you said, I saw a random, I think it might have been on Twitter, maybe it was on ESPN, who knows, a poll about why people aren't watching, and the protests definitely have something to do with it, the anthem protests. That was the number one thing on that poll. And for me, it's the sloppiness of the games. I used to not miss many games, but now, I watched last night just because, but I didn't watch any of Texans-Bengals 2 weeks ago because it was so bad. So I think you could probably list off 6 or 7 things.
When it comes to the sloppiness of play, they've cut back on tackling drills and contact in practices. Is there any steps that they can take to ensure the non-sloppiness of the games with taking away the contact?
Yeah, if you put flags on the guys, it becomes less sloppy, right? I don't think so, no. I think there's a combination of not being able to practice. Tough to be good at something you're not practicing. And all the kids coming from college, to me, college football and pro football are a totally different game, and it is taking 3 or 4 years, even on the defensive side of the ball, for the kids to become more technically sound. So I think it's probably a combination of both.
Do you anticipate the play will get better as we move forward in the year and guys get a couple games under their belts, or do you think this is the new norm?
Double-edged sword, right? Guys get hurt, backups come in, so play dips. But, if the teams that are good, usually see when the playoff races start to heat up, that's when play kind of steps up. That's why my favorite football weekend of the year for pro is Wild Card weekend, because the play is always really good. So yeah, it should improve a little bit at least.
Well, with that being said, let's start with the college football weekend ahead of us. 2-1 last week in college. We're 9-9 official on the year. We'll give out our leans today. Officials will come tomorrow. We'll start tonight. Game in Tucson, Arizona with your boy Rich Rod. They host Utah as a 3.5-point dog.
This is actually a big game for our boy Rich Rod. I think if he can somehow win a game like this, it'll go a long way for him being a head coach next year. I kind of want to lean Arizona just because Utah is such a terrible road team. But Arizona is such a bad team in general. I'm going to stay away. But if you force me something here, I'd lean home team.
I also have a small lean on Arizona. I don't think Utah could score that many points, and that showed against BYU in a rivalry game a couple weeks back. BYU is pretty awful.
Yeah.
Interesting game. I think this weekend is going to tell us a lot about the top 10, and this is one where I think we're going to find out a lot about Michigan. They go to Purdue. Purdue off to a great start. They are a 10-point home dog.
Interesting line here. Michigan really struggles to move the ball, really struggles to score. The line is kind of sneaky low. Right now, I think I'd take a chance on the Boilermakers. I worry that it's a sort of a close game and they make a mistake and give Michigan's defense a chance to score. That would be my concern here. But I think this is a fair teaser play for Purdue going up.
Yeah, I think the line right now is right on the number. The thing I worry about in taking Purdue is with the new style of up-tempo. Michigan is probably going to get a lot more opportunities with the ball. So I could see this being a 7 to 10 point game and Michigan with a chance late to cover this spread.
Yep.
Sticking in the Big Ten to Des Moines, where Iowa hosts Penn State. Penn State a 12.5-point favorite.
Under the lights at Iowa. Iowa 9-3 against the spread as a touchdown or more home dog under Kirk. Getting 13 here, I'm tempted. You know this game way better than I do, so I will defer to you, but that would be my thought.
Very worried, very concerned. On paper, it should be no matchup, but for some reason, ranked teams that go to Iowa have struggled. I don't know why it is, but for me, this is an Iowa play or nothing.
Yeah, Penn State's offense is scary with a line. These two teams are not close to me in talent.
Right.
So 13 to me is not a huge spread for the talent disparity. I wish I could get 16 here, but I'm with you. I have a lean here to Iowa just because.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it exactly.
But I don't think we can officially lean against your team. That doesn't seem right.
To who I think is the most impressive team in the country, Clemson, 34-point favorite, hosting Boston College. Clemson goes to Va-Tech next week.
Yeah, a little bit of a sandwich game, and 4 weeks ago I had this game circled on the look-ahead page during our preview, just because I thought Boston College was going to be decent this year. They've really been disappointing. I know I've leaned on them a couple times, and they just can't score. They have a couple good players on defense, but obviously nowhere near the talent that Clemson has. This one can get ugly. The only thing that's keeping me away, though, like you said, the little look-ahead spot to Clemson.
Perfectly analyzed. I have nothing to add to that. It would be either Clemson or nothing for me, but I don't like Clemson enough.
Yeah.
Interesting one down in Tallahassee. Their first game in 3 weeks. They're a 12.5-point favorite hosting NC State.
You said it perfectly there. First game in 3 weeks. Just breaking in the new quarterback after the Francois injury. I really like NC State's defense. I think their linebackers can really run. Brother of Nick Chubb over there. I'm going to take the 12 here with NC State as a good solid lean.
Add the hook, you get 12.5.
I had a hook. Give me a free hook any day of the week.
I think this one is in the on-deck circle waiting to go to bat. Just want to make sure nothing transpires between now and 7 o'clock tomorrow night. But I think NC State may be an official.
Love it.
Interesting one between the Hedges and Athens. 4.5-point favorite hosting Mississippi State off that big win over LSU.
Liked Mississippi State going into this game last week. They go ahead and dismantle LSU. Makes it a little scarier for me. I wish the line was a little lower here. I haven't been a fan of this Georgia team. I hate their secondary, but I don't think that's a huge problem in this matchup. I want to lean Georgia here, but I think it's probably, I don't like giving more than the field goal, so I'm probably going to stay away.
I'm with you. I think Georgia wins this game, but I do wish it was more 3.5.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, you would think, is going to have some sort of letdown after the big LSU win.
That's what I would think, too.
Florida has owned Kentucky, yet they're only a 1.5 point favorite in the land of Calipari.
The line smells, and when the line smells, me and you come running like rats to cheese, moldy cheese, lean Kentucky here. Florida can't score. Their defense obviously is really good, so I expect a low-scoring, hammer-it-out game. Kentucky's defense also pretty good, though. I think the home team shocks the world here.
Of course we would lean Kentucky because they're an awful football team.
That's what we do. We pick old moldy cheese.
This is a 7:30 start, so this may be an official.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I want to get your thoughts on a game in College Park. They host Central Florida, 4-point favorite.
Another game, this to me is similar to the Georgia-Mississippi State game. I wish I could push this one down to 3. Both these teams are going to be able to score. Maryland has run the ball very well this year. It's just a matter of which defense is going to make a stop. I think the over-under is like 60, 61. I think there's a ton of people backing the over, so it's going to be a high-scoring game. I want to fear the turtle here, take the shells, but they've let me down in the past. I'm not sure I can trust them. Whatever defense makes the one stop is going to win here.
Louisville trying to bounce back from the Clemson game last week. 44-point favorites hosting Kent State.
I'm sure Jackson will put on a show, but that line's just crazy high for an average football team.
Very disappointed in his performance last week. For a week leading up, I had heard how improved he was as a pocket passer. Granted, his offensive line might not be that great, and facing the best defensive line in the country going to certainly skew the performance, but I was disappointed in Jackson.
Did Jackson lose the Heisman last week?
I think so. I think he was already in an uphill climb. How many guys have won it 2 times? But now I think that sealed his fate.
I agree.
Virginia Tech, 28-point favorites hosting Old Dominion. As we mentioned earlier, they have Clemson on deck.
Virginia Tech was one of your teams preseason. They got a big game next week, so that worries me a little bit. But ODU, they don't have the depth of normal FBS teams, being fairly new. I lean Virginia Tech here. I just think they're going to pound it, especially in the second half. I think ODU wears down. Probably a little too many for me to officially lean right now just because of the Clemson game looming.
I agree. I love Fuente. Love what he's done with that offense. I'm very interested to see what happens next week in Blacksburg when Clemson comes to town.
I'm interested to see what that line is going to be.
You guess right now, assuming both Clemson and Vatek win handily this week.
I'll say Clemson 8.5.
Wow.
I think it's big. I think America, or the media is starting to love Clemson, especially because of last week, what they did. Last week was a closer game. I don't think so, but just trying to think of how, if you're going to entice bettors, the line's got to be over a touchdown, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say 7.5, and Vegas sees where the money comes.
Yeah.
Another team that's been off for a couple weeks, Miami hosts Toledo. Miami's a 13.5-point favorite.
That line seems low, but Miami's rested. They should have some of their starters should be ready to go. Some of the Irma thoughts off their mind. Line is smelly low though, but I'm not sure I can back Toledo.
Interesting one. We're going to find out a lot about Washington, I think. They go to Boulder, 11.5-point favorites.
Another line that's low, and I was down on the Buffs this year. They lost a ton. Interesting game, though. This could be one of those scrappy games where Washington struggles. I think they win. I think they pull it out in the second half. But that line is telling me that Colorado could be a lean.
It's a really interesting line. The only time I've seen Washington is when they struggled against Rutgers. I think this is a prove-it game for them. And I'm with you. They were not impressive at all against Rutgers. I don't think they have the same type of... The secondary certainly down. The running game struggled immensely against Rutgers. This would be a small lean on Colorado for me.
Yeah, I was much higher on Washington. I have them winning the pack this year. So this is a big game for my eyeballs. I would like to see them win this game by 17, 21 points on the road. But I'm with you. This is a scary spot for them.
We talked a couple weeks back about Ohio State getting a chance to make it good. They get UNLV this week. 12 o'clock kick in Columbus. 9 o'clock for UNLV. 40-point underdogs.
I usually don't like these games, but I actually like Ohio State giving the 40 here. UNLV might be the worst team in college football, like you said. 9 a.m. game for them, which is going to be awful. JT Barrett wants to put up numbers. He wants to prove that he's not a below-average quarterback like everyone is saying he is now. I think this is one of those 65-3 games.
Yeah, I think you have to lean Ohio State here. Last week with that triple option, they barely cover, but with just the straight-up offense of UNLV, they shouldn't have any issue covering the 40.
Yeah.
Two unranked teams, but would like to get your thoughts on it in Lansing. Notre Dame 3.5-point favorites against Sparty.
Yeah, Sparty down this year a little bit. The Irish pretty disappointing too. They should have won that Georgia game. That hook though is scary, against a coach like D'Antonio. I don't want to give that hook, but I like Notre Dame to win this game.
I have the same exact feel you do. I did see it. D'Antonio is 5-0 as an underdog in his last 5 with 4 straight-up wins.
Wow.
But I do want to like Notre Dame as well.
Yeah.
LSU off that disappointing performance in Mississippi State, 21-point favorites hosting our Orange.
21 doesn't seem like a lot here. I know they looked awful. This is one where, on paper, I lean LSU, but I need to see the status of guys before kickoff.
I'm seeing probable, but that could change.
Yeah, I mean, he's their most dynamic player by a lot on offense. So if he's out, then my whole mindset might flip to the Utica Fighting Orange as a lean.
Auburn goes to Missouri. Auburn with Mississippi State on deck. They are an 18-point favorite.
No feel for this one. Auburn's kind of the Jekyll and Hyde team so far. Was, really disappointing performance against Clemson. I know Clemson's defense is really good, but no feel for the Auburn team yet.
Alabama, 18.5-point favorites going to undefeated Vanderbilt.
Great story, Vandy. They had a really good year last year. Love seeing Vandy compete at least under Derek Mason. This line seems low. I'm shocked it's not like 23 and a half, maybe 24. I would have to think Bama just keeps pounding away, but the line is just begging people to take Alabama.
Yeah, I'm being sucked in. I think Saban will have the troops ready after hearing all week how great Clemson is. And I think Vanderbilt's offense does not match up well against that Bama defense.
Yeah, I can't decide if this is a sucker line or a free gift. Like that, I keep going back and forth.
I would lean Bama.
Great teaser candidate, in my opinion.
Yes. To Stillwater for the Mullet. 12.5-point favorites hosting Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs.
Love what I'm seeing out of our Oklahoma State Cowboy team. Both our favorite over picks on the year. That offense last week in the first half at Pitt was just disgustingly good. I'm going to go against them this week. I like TCU's secondary a lot in this matchup. I think the Cowboys win, but I think it's more of like a 8 to 10 point win.
I'm with you. I was hoping that you weren't going OK State. I do love what they've done on offense. If Pitt could have scored a couple points last week, they could have put up 80 easily.
Right.
But I think Patterson will have that defense ready for OK State. And that
boy, Gary Patterson, 9-2 against the spread
There you go. I'd like to see.
Pretty good.
I'd like to see if we can get this line up to 13 or 13 and a hook before the 7 o'clock kick.
I would salivate over 13.
An SEC game in Texas A&M. They host Arkansas. Texas A&M's a 2.5-point favorite. My question to you is this a losing coach goes home game?
I think it's only if it's someone. I don't think Bielema's getting fired yet. Is his seat that hot?
I looked today. I was pretty surprised. He's 26-26 at Arkansas.
Wow, maybe I'm drinking too much Kool-Aid because I've always liked him, but wow. I think he's more of an after the season fired candidate. Someone obviously, if he walks the wrong way home, might get fired.
Oklahoma 27.5-point favorites against Matty Rule and Baylor in Baylor.
How is this line not 40 based on what we've seen so far this year? Something is weird in this one. I don't understand why it's so low.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Oklahoma's got an open date next week on tap.
I don't know. Maybe Baylor might be. I love shitty teams. Baylor might be on another level though. But if you give me 28, I might fall for it.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about this game.
That's just a weird line. That should be 40 based on what's happened so far this season.
At least high 30s.
Wow.
Two more games. USC goes to Cal. USC 17-point favorites.
I think that's about right. You know, it's kind of what USC's been beating teams by, so kind of stay away from me.
I would lean USC in this spot. They match up well against Cal. Cal, pretty good win over Ole Miss despite the sanctions for Ole Miss. But I like USC in this spot. And lastly, Mike Leach, 28-point favorite against Nevada.
Another one I don't have a feel for. Leach has got his troops playing well, but that's a lot of points.
Next Friday night, we've had it circled. Washington State welcomes USC.
Yeah, so that might be a little too many points for this week. I would love to see if Leach starts pulling out or holding things back this week so he can pull it all out next week.
A scary matchup for the Trojans next Friday.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that one.
Any other thoughts on college? We'll get the officials out tomorrow.
I don't have any others written down. The only other one I have written down is the Kansas Jayhawks at home, 21.5. Traditionally we've loved betting on Kansas because they're so bad. They host West Virginia, noon kick in Lawrence, so just something to look at.
We love betting shitty teams.
Not to get away from it now.
Your thoughts on the NFL Thursday night game?
That was probably the most entertaining Thursday night game we've had in 5 years.
I was very impressed with Jared Goff. I don't know if San Fran's defense is bad, which it probably is, but Goff still impressed me.
Goff made some throws that were, high-level NFL throws, you only see from some of the top quarterbacks. If I'm a Rams fan, I'm very happy with the difference he is showing right now versus last year. I know it's a shitty team they're playing, but still, got to be somewhat impressed. Todd Gurley, really good game. 49ers just wait until next year to find a quarterback.
Manageable schedule for the LA Rams.
8-8 on the table.
How good is Aaron Donald?
Best player in the league.
Fair enough.
That's it. If you're besides a quarterback, if you're asking me to pick a player to start a team, it's Aaron Donald.
Fair enough. We start in London, 9:30 Sunday morning. Home game for the Jaguars. They opened 4.5. It is down to 4. The Ravens are the favorite.
Apologies to the English to have to watch another game like this. Ravens defense has been dominant it so far. I still see a question mark near Terrence West, so that is something to watch. Buck Allen will get the start, so not a huge drop-off for me. I want to like the Jags here. I'm struggling to find out why, because the Ravens are just going to try to stop Leonard Fournette at all costs. If Bortles can somehow not turn the ball over, I think they have a shot in this game.
Jags 3-1 in their last 4 against the spread against the Ravens, 2-2 straight up. Ravens, as we mentioned earlier in the week, Steelers on tap. I like the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right, well, I think you could probably talk me into that Sunday morning early.
Shittiest game of the year, Indianapolis hosts Cleveland. Cleveland opened as a 2-point road favorite. They're down to -1.
Yeah, that line's going the wrong way. It looks like more bettors on Cleveland. Total stay away from me. I have no idea.
Yeah, let's move on. Chicago hosts the Steelers. This opened 7.5. It's down to 7. Steelers -7.
God, the Bears keep sucking me in. I wish I could get this back to 7.5. I think this game is going to be sort of like that Atlanta-Chicago game week 1 where it's sort of close.
I'm going to star the Chicago Bears. If somehow we can get that line back at 7.5, I would jump on it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't want the 7. God, I think Jordan Howard is not going to play, is my guess. So I think Cohen is going to get more carries, which means they'll probably struggle to run it, but I think he's a very good weapon in the passing game. Back door could be open big time in this one.
Meadowlands, Jets, 6-point dogs, open -6.5. The Dolphins are now -6.
I'll leave this one up to you because I want to lean the Jets, and I'm going to wait for you to talk me out of it.
I have no stats to back you up to talk you out of it. The Dolphins have New Orleans next week. The Jets have the Jaguars, so no look-ahead spots. I have no feel.
I don't either. I'm just, 6 doesn't seem like a lot for the worst team in football, and, why not bet on the worst team?
Denver goes to Buffalo. They open -2. They're up to -3.
Yeah, I was expecting something like that. That opening line didn't make sense. If this moves one more inch, I'll lean the Bills here.
I like the Bills at 3 right now.
Wow.
Denver on the road, in between Dallas and Oakland next week. I like the Buffalo Bills.
Coming off the public showing of destroying Dallas, only giving a field goal, bettors are probably all over Denver if I had to guess. Actually, I have it up here somewhere. They are at 83% on Denver, so yeah, I'm with you. I like Buffalo.
New England up to 14. They open 13, hosting Deshaun Watson and the Texans.
I wanted to like New England here. The line is just pushing too high up for me, though.
Completely agree. No way I could take Houston with Watson against Belichick.
Yeah, no way.
Carolina -5.5, hosting New Orleans. This open 6 has dropped a half point.
Kind of a no man's land line. Drew Brees typically plays well against Carolina. I feel like this is one of those games where we mentioned it earlier this week. He could just light them up, but a total stay away again for me. I don't have a good feel for Carolina yet.
I wanted to lean New Orleans, but when this dropped to no man's land, it pushed me away out from that.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at, too.
Minnesota hosts Tampa. This open as a pick. It's up to -2 in favor of Minnesota. I still don't have an official word on Sam Bradford.
I do have an official word, and Sam Bradford is officially out.
Oh, okay. So this line may change then. This still has him as questionable.
That is, Adam Schefter said he is out. Looks like Case Keenum getting the start. The line is off the board as of now.
Where do you think this line goes?
I would have to say it's got to be Tampa Bay, maybe 2.5 or 3.
Insights has it at -1 with Keenum listed as the starter.
Wow, that's pretty low. I don't want this one then. I have a weird feeling Jameis Winston's going to really struggle in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I could honestly see this being a field goal, last second type of game.
Yes, I agree with you. Winston struggles, but I don't see how Minnesota scores many points.
Exactly.
Atlanta, off their big win against Green Bay, open 3.5. They're down to 3, going to Detroit.
Don't love the way this line is going, but Arizona stinks and the Giants stink, and I think the Lions stink. So call me a sucker, but I'll take the road favorite given only a field goal here.
I'm deferring to you because I really don't have a feel. I don't know what Detroit is.
They stink.
Atlanta, Buffalo next week, so no real look-ahead or sandwich spot. So I think this line is a little low.
Yeah, this should be 4.5, 5-ish. Detroit stinks, I'll say it again.
Eagles host the Giants, open 3.5. Eagles now -6.
Eagles should be giving at least 12.5, 13 here. That's how much better they are. I love the Eagles in the spot under a touchdown.
I've watched too many of these movies. 0-2 desperate Giants team. It makes no sense that the Giants would win this game, but I just can't back the Eagles here.
Only concern, since I'm a diehard Eagles backer now, is they can't run the ball. That's my only concern.
Any word on Jenkins? I know he hasn't practiced all week.
Questionable. Last I saw is that he is leaning towards giving it a go, but he is going to test it pregame.
Interesting. Very interesting game in Tennessee. They're 2.5-point favorites hosting Seattle. This opened Tennessee -1 has jumped to 2.5.
Yeah, the line is saying basically, please back Tennessee. 57% are betting on Seattle spread. I know they beat the Jags last week, but they just looked so bad week 1. Maybe it's scaring me away from Tennessee. Chicken's terrible on the road the last few years. But under a field goal, if you're telling me to pick the better team, I think it's Seattle. So, man, my gut tells me to take the points here.
Does seem like that kind of game. Although I do want to take Tennessee, I cannot. And I'm going to face this every week, back Mike Mularkey.
Yeah, there's a huge coaching mismatch here.
Our offensive line for Seattle is scary bad.
It's all-time bad. It was bad last year. What did they do in the offseason? Nothing.
How many games can you rely on Wilson to make a couple plays and get killed in the process?
I do like that rookie Carson out of the backfield. They at least gave him 20 carries last week, so I would assume that would continue. I would like to see them get C.J. Procise in the game, kind of as a gadget guy out of the backfield. 7-8 touches out of the backfield.
The Football Club of Los Angeles hosts the Chiefs. The Chiefs open 3, have remained 3.
I like the Chiefs on paper, but I think the Football Club wagon is in desperate need of a win here. So I think I'm going to take the soccer home team with the points.
They get the W this week. This is a prime Andy Reid letdown spot.
Yeah.
2 good wins. New England and Philly. Now he goes to a division rival. I love the Chargers.
Has Andy Reid has he achieved more than you thought he was going to after leaving Philly?
Yes, I'm very impressed with Andy. I've put my Chiefs hat back on after last week, and I hope they win it all. He deserves to get a Super Bowl.
Oh man, he's one of the more underrated coaches the last 25 years.
I wish that he would give more access to the public or to TV. He is such a charming and funny guy that I wish more people got to see that side of him. There's been a couple things in Philly that they've done on the Comcast local channel, but I wish that he would open up more to, I think more people would really grow to like him.
Yeah, fair enough.
Green Bay hosts the Cincinnati Bengals and their new offensive coordinator. Green Bay opened -10. They're now -9. I'm seeing Jordy Nelson as questionable.
Yeah, Randall Cobb's dinged up too. This is one of those situations I feel like Green Bay the last few years always throws a clunker in. They win, but they'll win by 4 or 5, kind of late. Cincinnati, quote unquote, terrible, have been terrible all year so far. They haven't done anything right. I'm not sure why this line isn't 13 or 14, so just on that reason, it's stay away.
Are we going to see more of Mixon and A.J. Green this week?
I would hope. Why not? Can't get worse. You should give your 2 best players the ball every play.
If Cincinnati, I want to go through their schedule quickly. So they have Green Bay this week, assuming a loss. They go to Cleveland next week. Is there any chance they go 0-4?
Sure, there's definitely a chance.
I guess my question is there any chance Marvin Lewis is in season firing?
Yeah, if they lose to Cleveland next week, I think he's definitely out.
Okay.
If they're going to be favored in that game by 4 or 5, I would think, maybe 6. So if they lose that, I think you'll see a change right there.
Sunday night in Landover. Raiders in town, open 3.5, down to -3.
If these teams were the Philadelphia Soul and the Newark Hens, I would love the hometown Newark Hens here. Just based on 75% on the road team, favored by 3.5, going down to 3, but I just can't do it. I cannot back the Washington team. I'll lean Oakland just out of principle. I think I'm going to lean against Washington every week this year.
They are in a favorable spot. Raiders started in the East Coast, went back west for the Jets last week, back to East Coast this week. Broncos on deck.
Yeah, that's a great spot, but they suck as a football team.
Are we going to see Terry Pryor more involved this week?
There's been a lot of talk about that on the radio. Just basically Cousins not trusting him yet, not familiar with how he breaks off his routes, where to throw it. He's so big and athletic, I think you can throw it almost anywhere around him and he'll go get it. I think this week, though, the guy you'll see more of is Chris Thompson. He had a really long touchdown run last week. A lot of people clamoring for him to get 15, 17 touches a game versus the 6 or 7 he's getting. They have Rob Kelly, they have Smadre Perine, but you'll see them mixed in. But I think you'll see Chris Thompson way more involved this week.
This is probably a stupid question. Are we going to see Jordan Reed?
He was at practice yesterday in dress. So while I said no chance the other day, apparently there's a chance. Could be one of those situations where he plays and, doesn't look exactly right and is kind of used as a decoy.
I'm interested to see if this line moves at all.
Yeah. 3 is if you get it back to 3.5, maybe you could tempt me to take the home team. But, if it goes down to 2.5, you're just picking the winner of a game, then Oakland is a better team. But this is not a great spot, like you said, for Oakland.
Monday night in Arizona, they host the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas open 3.5, down to 3.
Yeah, I don't care where this line goes. If it's under 3, I like Dallas. I don't care if there's 99.9% of the public on them. This is basically Arizona's season right here, in my opinion. I expect them to play better, but Carson Palmer just looks so bad. I'm not sure how they score without David Johnson. And I think this is a redemption-style game for Dallas after everyone's talking about them last week. I think they run the ball down Arizona's throat.
We're locking it in right now at -3. I love Dallas.
Yeah, I don't care what any of the numbers say. Just from a football perspective, I think they win something like 24-13, 27-17. I just think they come out with a ferocity to them this week.
Yeah, it seems once or twice a year on the pod we come in and just scratch our head at what Jason Garrett did play calling, and then he redeems himself the week after. So as you said, they're going to pound it. They're going to pound it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So Dallas is the only official. We'll get the other officials for college out tomorrow, and the NFL's out Sunday. Great job by you today.
Golf clap for the host. Well done, buddy.
Enjoy the weekend.
You too. See you, man.